All right. So number 20, what is the y-intercept of the line? And it's in point slope form. It really doesn't matter what form it is because you just need to know what the definition of y-intercept is. And what's that definition? When x equals 0, right? So knowing that definition, it doesn't matter what form this equation is in. It's in point slope form, by the way, but it doesn't matter. Because all I have to do to solve this is plug in 0 for the x. So instead of writing x, I'm going to write 0 and then solve for the y. And that will be my y-intercept. So start simplifying. What is 0 plus 3.5? 3.5. Jack, did you go already? Go. What's a negative 4 times 3.5? You guys know how to use a calculator, right? What's negative 4 times 3.5? Negative 14 equal to y plus 4. Now work toward isolating the y. So how do you get the y by itself? So what would be opposite of adding 4? So do that on each side. And now that the y is by itself, you have your y-intercept. So it's negative 14 minus 4, which is negative 18. So that's what should have been filled into this box. Not y equals, it tells you the directions. Don't type y equals, because if you did, it would have marked it wrong. But it's negative 18 for your y-intercept. Questions? Is that confusing anyone? So confused? So if it asks you about x or y-intercept, it does not matter what the equation looks like. All you're doing is plugging in 0 for either x or y. It just depends on if it wants the x-intercept or the y-intercept. Questions? All right, also just a side note, check your answers using Desmos. So on your paper test, part of your grade is being able to show work, but you can still use Desmos to check your answer. So if I type this equation into Desmos, so y plus 4, hold on, y plus 4 equals, what was it, negative 4 times x plus 3.5. Let me double check. All right. And then if you know your definition of y-intercept, what's that definition? When x equals 0, but then also like if you're looking at a graph, where's your y-intercept touch? Where does your y-intercept touch? There's a reason it's called your y-intercept, because it touches your y-axis. And if I hover over that point, isn't that the same answer that we got? Yes. So you can check your answers using Desmos, but you're still required to show the work, but just so you can make sure you're doing it right. All right. Any other ones you'd like to see from the test? 11. All right, so let me pull it up on here. So number 11, same thing. It wants your x and y intercepts. So you should know for your x intercept, what's that definition? It's when y equals 0. What's the definition of your y-intercept? When x equals 0. So by plugging in 0, I can find my x or y-intercept. So if we're finding the x-intercept first, That means that y is going to be 0, so plugging in a 0 for the y. Right, the equation comes from what's given to you. You don't have to rearrange it or anything. And then keep solving. So what's 3 times 0? What's x minus 0? And then now that I have the x by itself, x equals 6. That's why my x-intercept was 6. Make sense? So then for my y-intercept, it's when x equals 0, so plug in 0 for the x. So 0 minus 3y equals 6. What's 0 minus 3y? Negative 3y. And then get the y by itself. How do you get the y by itself? Divide negative 3 on each side, and y equals negative 2. That's why our y-intercept is negative 2. And if you plug that equation into Desmos, you can check your answer that way. So x minus 3y equals 6. All right, your y-intercept touches your y-axis. All right, isn't that the same answer that we got? And then your x-intercept touches your x-axis. Isn't that the same answer we got for the x-intercept? All right, so on your test, you still have to show that work that we did where you're actually like plugging it in and solving it. But that's how you can make sure you're doing it right. Questions? Yep. All right, any other ones? Yes, Kira. Number 6. All right, so this one's a good one. I don't think you've seen something like this yet, but that's why I didn't hold it against you when you took your Galileo test. So this one is kind of like a bonus on the Galileo test. On the test you're taking tomorrow, your retake, it's not a bonus. FYI. But here's how you solve it. So definitely be taking notes on this one since you get to use your orange paper. Right. But for number 6, which values of A, B, and C will AX plus BY equals C be a vertical line through the point 9,3? So think about when we learned about vertical and horizontal lines. They have like special equations. So that's either x equals or y equals. If it's a vertical line, which one is it? So think about it. I'm going to draw a coordinate plane. And if I have a vertical line, it will look something like that. Are all the x values the same or are all the y values the same on that line? Maybe if I add numbers, that'll help. So this is a little bit separate from the problem that we're doing. So say that this is on the 4 or the x. So on this line, what are all the x values equal to? So for this random example that's not related to this problem, my equation for that would be x equals 4. So vertical lines have the equation x equals a number basically. All right, the number depends on, where that line is. If it's like this way, that way, it's wherever it touches the x. So if it's a vertical line going through the point 9,3, so xy, what's my equation? Is it x equals 3? Is it x equals 9? It can only be one of the two. So which one makes more sense? If it's a vertical line and it happens to go through that point. It would be x equal to 9. All right, so if my equation for that line that goes through that point is x equals 9, then for my answer options, I can eliminate 2 of them. Because if my answer for the equation is x equals 9, that means that the y term had to cancel, right? Because normally it's y equals mx plus b. Well, if that's my equation, there's no y anymore. So that means 0 would have to be plugged in for the y. So any of these options that don't have 0 for the b can be eliminated. So it can't be b and it can't be d. So we're down to just a and c. Is that making sense at all so far? Because if my equation for the vertical line is always x equals a number, there's no y term, right? That means b had to be 0. So if b was 1, like it is in these other options, the y would still be there, but it's not. Does that make sense? So if I have ax plus 0y equal to c, what's 0 times y? Not y. 0 times y is 0. So that's why we end up with something that looks like this. Because b had to be 0. Does that make sense? All right, I'm worried for you. Yeah. We definitely spent a lot of time in this in class, but I'll just keep going. All right, so we're choosing between A and C. What I did is I plugged in all the A, B, and C's for the numbers in this equation. And I plugged in my X and Y, so the 9 and the 3. And I checked to see which one is true. So A is 1, X is 9, B is 0, Y is 3, and C is 3. And then see if it's true. What's 1 times 9? What's 0 times 3? Is 9 plus 0 equal to 3? No, so that's why it's not A. Check C. So it has A is 1, X is 9, B is 0, X is 3, and it's equal to 9. Again, 1 times 9 is 0 times 3 is 9 plus 0 equal to 9. So that's why C is the only one that works. I think there's someone after her. Anyone else ask me to use restroom? All right, yes, we can go. All right, and then you can also check your answer by plugging it in. So if you plug in A, B, and C, the standard form, that makes it 1x plus 0y equal to 9. All right, makes a vertical line. And then it also needs to go through the point 9, 3. Does that point land on the line? So that's how I know I found the right one. All right, questions? All right, any other ones from the test? Number 7. All right, so which equation matches the graph? And then your answers are in what form? I didn't quite hear that. What are my answer options in? What form? That's not slope intercept form. Point slope form. All right, if you don't know point slope form, then maybe write this down because you'll have at least 3 problems like that tomorrow, 3 or more. All right, but here's a formula for point slope form. It's y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So here's my formula. Remember that the x1 and y1 get replaced with numbers, and that's just a point that's on the line. So any point on the line. And then what does the m represent? The slope. So it gives me a graph. I need to first figure out the slope. That'll help me eliminate 2 of these options. So from a graph, how can you figure out the slope? Or what is the slope of this graph? Nobody got the right slope for this one? For number 7? It's -2, good. So to figure that out, you look for where it goes through, remember, a crosshair. All right, you want it to be right in the center, right? So if I pick 2 random points that go through crosshairs, it would be here and down here. And you can pick other ones, that's fine, but that's just the ones that I saw. Make a triangle and count your rise and your run. So what's my rise? -2, good, because it's going down 2. You always go from your left dot to your right dot. We have to go down 2, so it's negative. And what's my run? 1. All right, and then m is always rise over run. So it's -2 over 1. So which ones can I eliminate? Which ones do not have the right number in the slope position? A and B. Right, so the number outside the parentheses is your slope. A and B do not have the right slope. So it's between C and D. C and D, they have the same slope, but they use different points. All I have to check is if the point that they use is on the line that's on my graph. So remember, it's the numbers that are in these positions. I'm going to erase the line under the slope. That is for my point. And it always goes x comma y. So what's the point for C that they use? -2, -1. And you're probably wondering why are they negatives when it says plus? All right, it's because in point slope form, the signs always change, right? Because of this minus. So if you plug in a negative, you end up getting a double negative. That's why they end up as plus in the formula. Now, is the point -2, 1 on our graph? So here's x is -2, here's where y is -1. Yes, it's on that line. So that's why our answer is C. If I tested out D, what's the point that they used for D? 1, 3, and it's positive, right? Because the signs are always opposite. So 1, 3. Is 1, 3 on our graph or on our line? All right, no, because 1, 3 would be like right here, and that's not on our line. All right, for the problems that you have tomorrow on your test, it's not multiple choice. It's giving you a graph and it says, write it in point slope form using this point. All right, so you have to be able to find your slope and be able to plug in stuff into the formula. Questions there? Any others from the test? Okay, I'll do number 5, but does someone else have one that they want to go over? Yes, Sarah? 8, okay, we'll do 8 and then 5. All right, so number 8. What is an equation in point slope form of a line that passes through the point -2, 10 and has a slope of -4? All right, so here's the formula again. y minus y1 equals f parentheses x minus x1. The point gets plugged in. So which one is going to be x1? Is it going to be the -2 or the 10? The -2. Which one's going to be y1? The 10. And when it says slope of -4, what letter does that replace? The n. All right. So if you want to like label it first, that's probably a good strategy. And then plug it into your formula. So we have -2 under where the x1 goes, 10 for where the y1 goes, and -4. So are you seeing this? Like I'm writing it under the formula. And then bringing everything else from the formula down. So it's y minus 10 equal to -4, parentheses x minus a -2. What's something that I can clean up? Like what happens with that double negative? Becomes a positive. So that's why my final answer is y minus 10 equals -4 parentheses x plus 2, which matches option C. All right, again, these ones aren't multiple choice on your test tomorrow. You have to write it yourself. But if it tells you this is the slope and this is the point, you're just plugging it in. Questions on this one? Yes.
Why is it x plus 2?
So when I plug in the -2, so x1 is supposed to be -2. The formula, it's supposed to be x minus x1. So it's x minus a -2. So that changes the sign. If it's easy for you to like remember it this way, the signs are always opposite for the point in the formula. So it's a -2 here, in the formula it's a +2. It's a +10 here, in the formula it's a -10. All right. Oh, and actually it's not C, it's D, my God. Because the slope is a -4. Sorry. So yeah, should have been D. Questions there? All right, 5 was the next request, so we're gonna do 5 next. All right, so complete the equation for the vertical line that passes through -2, -9. And it kind of helps you out with giving you part of the equation. It says x equals blank. Like I said before, for vertical and horizontal lines, it's either x equals a number or y equals a number. X equals a number is for your vertical lines. Y equals a number is for your horizontal lines. And the way you can figure it out when all it gives you is a point is just look at your point. It always goes x then y. So for this one, it's going to be x equals -2. All right, because the rule is like for vertical lines, all the x values are the same. That's why it's x equals this number. For horizontal lines, all the y values are the same. That's why it's y equals a number. So just look at your point. Vertical line is x equals, so that's not x equals 0, but x equals something. So it's whatever the x is. Questions there? All right. Any other ones? Yes, please. All right, so this one's a good one. And it is a little tricky, the wording. All right, when I read this the first time, I thought the answer was something different. And then when I looked at the answer key, I was like, oh, right. So the wording can be tricky. That's why this was a bonus on the Galileo test. I didn't hold this one against you. And it's gonna be a bonus on your paper test. Of course, the paper test is different, but it's like the same style. So just FYI, but this can get you a nice chunk of points, extra credit. We have line J passes through point 20 and is perpendicular to the graph of this. All right, so let's take some notes. Line J is perpendicular to this graph. So perpendicular, what do we know about the slopes? Are they the same? Are they negative reciprocals? What do we know about perpendicular lines? All right, then you all should be writing this down. The slopes are negative reciprocals if they are perpendicular. All right. Slopes are negative reciprocals if they're perpendicular to each other. So if my original slope that is perpendicular to is 1/4, what's the negative reciprocal of that? -4/1, or just -4, right? You flip it and you change the sign. So I know that for line J, the slope, the M, is equal to -4. It's perpendicular to that given line. Everyone with me so far? All right. So then we have line K, which is parallel to line J. So it's not parallel to whatever this is over here. It's parallel to what line J is. So what's the slope of line K? -4, right? Because parallel lines, what do we know about their slopes? They have the same slope. They have the same M. So if line K is parallel to line J, and we already figured out that that slope is -4, then line K should also have a slope of -4. Good so far? All right, and then it also, for line K, passes through this given point, so -1/6. And it wants to know the equation for line K in slope-intercept form. What slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. So we need to figure out the slope and your y-intercept. The slope we know is -4. The y-intercept we have to solve for. How can I solve for it? What else can I plug in? What's the y going to be? 6, right? You plug in your given point. All right, so my given point is -1/6, so that means y is 6, x is -1, and we can solve for b. That makes sense. So then what's -4 times -1? 4 plus b equals 6. And now get the b by itself. What do I do for that? So subtract 4 on each side, and b equals 2. All right, and then put it together. I know my slope for line K is -4. My y-intercept is 2. So that's why b is my answer. Questions? All right, any questions from the test? Tyrone, did you have your hand up for a question? Number 12. All right, so number 12. So for this one, it wants the equation in standard form. What's the standard form look like? AX plus BY equals C of this line that they wrote for us. What form is that in, by the way? It's in point slope form. Doesn't really matter though, because they don't want it in point slope form, they want it in standard form. Let's look at our answers. Which one can I eliminate like right off the bat? Which ones are not in standard form at all? A for sure. What's wrong with C? I don't see anything wrong with C. Can I eliminate B? Yeah, because for standard form, the X and Y should be on the same side, right? So can't be B. Can it be D? Because again, X and Y aren't on the same side. So for this one, you actually didn't have to do any work. Could have just looked at it and known standard form is AX plus BY equals C. But on your test, I don't think that one's multiple choice. So let me see. All right, I don't see on your test where you have to convert that to standard form. So I'm not going to. I don't want to confuse you. But if you did, all you're doing is like distributing and solving for Y after. Or not solving for Y, but moving the X term so that it's on the same side as your Y term. All right, questions? Any, like I could take maybe one more question. Yes, Kara? 15. And don't put your papers away because I still need to come by and check them out. All right, this one's a good one because it's about question 14. So it was like Jake needs to buy 120 beverages. What equation in standard form determines the number of X packs of juice and Y packs of water that he can buy? You guys probably got this one right. Am I good in saying that? Number 14, you guys didn't get it right? Okay, well, just kind of look at how it's set up. It's X of 8 packs of juice, so that's where we get 8 times X, and Y of 12 packs of water. That's why we get 12 times water. And then you need to buy 120 total, so that's why when you add them together, they equal 120. But for 15, it's asking what are possible combinations that he can buy. What you're supposed to do is plug in the X and Y's. So because remember, this is X and this is Y into that equation and solve. See if it equals 120. But you can cancel out some of the options just by looking at them. So why can't I choose B? Right? Can I buy 7.5 packs of juice? So that's why B is not a good option. Even if it does equal 120, it doesn't make sense. I can't buy half and 8 halves. What other one can be eliminated? D, because it has a negative. I can never buy a negative amount of something. So I plug in A and C, and I know it works because I plugged it in earlier. Sorry, we're just short on time. So that's why those two work. Because when you plug them in, it equals 120. Don't put away your orange paper.